Before we begin, let's take 2 minutes to just gather ourselves. We can focus on our breath or concentrate on our heart and just be less scattered and more still. Thank you. Yes, so good evening to some and good morning to to others, and thank you for joining us today. Uh, so last time we had wanted to start our readings on psychic education, which we thought were very relevant to our topic, and there were also some questions that Jagan had asked. So first, we'll just read a little bit of psychic education and then we'll take up the questions before we move on from there. So I'll share the screen and whoever is ready, if they are willing, they can unmute and read the first paragraph, which starts with the starting point.
Okay, I'll read it now.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Topic: the incarnate word. The starting point is to seek in yourself that which is independent of the body and the circumstances of life, which is not born of the mental formation that you have been given, the language you speak, the habits and customs of the environment in which you live, the country where you're born, or the age to which you belong. You must find in the depths of your being that which carries in it a sense of.
Yeah, Jagan, you've gone mute. Sorry, you'll have to unmute and read again from You Must Find. Yeah, Jagan, if you can hear me, you're on mute now.
Feel in their feelings, live in the life of all. What seemed inert suddenly becomes full of life. Stones quicken, plants feel and will and suffer. Animals speak in a language more or less inarticulate, but clear and expressive.
Yeah,
Everything is
Jagan,
animated by a
Jagan,
marvelous consciousness
Jagan, can you hear
without
me?
time or limit. And this is only one aspect of the psychic realization. There are others, many others. All help you to go beyond the barriers of your egoism, the walls of your external personality, the impotence of your reaction, and the incapacity of your will.
Yeah, thank you. There was some issue with your thing. It kept going on and off. So, but we'll read it again anyways. So let's start. It's very important and we'll go line by line. And at any point, if there's any comment, any question, feel free to unmute and ask. So it says that the starting point is to seek in yourself that which is independent of the body and the circumstances of life, which is not born of the mental formation that you have been given, the language you speak, the habits and customs of the environment in which you live, the country where you are born, or the age to which you belong. So I think this in itself is a very shakeable thing, because if somebody, if there's ever a question at who are you, or define yourself, or if I ask myself who I am, like usually beyond these things, I don't venture. And if we are here with this, the theme being the purpose of human life, or what is the aim of human life, we first must be able to step back and see that I am more, more than the body. I am the body, but I am not just the body. Things are happening, and yet they don't define me, the circumstances. My mental formations, the conditionings, something that we did, talk about in the last session. The language, the habits, the customs, the environment, the country, my age, my title, my job, my education, the things that I have gathered from outside, the things that I have been given from here. And that's why it is said that the starting point is to seek in yourself that which is independent of these. Like from there, one can begin. Yeah, I'll pause here. Anything on this? Okay. The next line. You must find in the depths of your being that which carries in it a sense of universality, limitless expansion, unbroken continuity. Then you decentralize, extend, and widen yourself. You begin to live in all things and in all beings. The barriers separating individuals from each other break down. Yeah. So the first was becoming independent of the things that I think myself to be. I take them as my, strict limits. And now it's saying that you must find in the depth of your being that which carries in it a sense of universality, limitless expansion, and unbroken continuity. Yeah.
This unbroken continuity, because many a times masters have, one can say, used space to point out as, for example, what is consciousness like. And if we see that, if there is like, if we imagine a vast space, and if we have like separate houses in that space, and these houses are each of us, you, me, the next person, the next being. And if we just for a moment imagine that all the bodies are discontinued, dissolved, but the space never goes away. The space is just vast unbroken continuity, and it always was. It was never that it is the space within my body, it is the space within your body. It appeared to be like that, but it was never like that. So many masters have also related consciousness, that which is conscious, that in me which sees the thoughts, sees the feelings, to space. And when I become conscious of being conscious, then we can identify what mother was talking about. We can step into that domain of unbroken continuity. But the point is that it's easier said than done, because the moment we have a glimpse of it, and then the next moment we are again identified with some other thought, feeling, or sense perception. And that is why people do sadhana, so that as to disidentify again and again from thoughts, feelings, which are the mental formations that mother was saying, that we are not the mental formations, go beyond that. So beyond the mental formation, I see that there is someone looking at the mental formation, and then someone looking at the looking. So a consciousness which is not only conscious of the contents, which is thoughts and feelings, but also conscious of its own self. And that is the capacity which is given to human beings. And that's why we say that human birth is precious, because if we have a consciousness, which is very easily we can see that yes, I am conscious, I'm able to see the content of my thought. But usually I identify with the content of thought rather than identifying with the one who is looking. So this looking aspect, if we contemplate on it many a times, it gives us this sense of universality. The one looking in you, the one looking in me is the same. The one looking in another being, maybe I have an enemy, I hope we don't have enemies, but if I am an enemy, and if he is aware of his thoughts, which he is, he may not know it that he is, which he is, that awareness is same as my awareness. So that gives me a sense of interconnectedness and universality, where you can't just be, yeah, enemy of anyone. Yeah, so just wanted to point out that space-like nature of, and also as space is untouched by events. For example, any filth, dirt, drain cannot touch the space. If you remove it, space is as it is, untouched. And same for anything precious, very beautiful, the space is still untouched. And that's how we liken the consciousness also, that the consciousness is same in all, the divine is same in all, and untouched by our so-called sins or achievements. He's pure and untouched. Yeah.
Yeah, so the consciousness which is being talked about here is the same as Atma.
Yeah, I would not say that actually, but it's of course interconnected, because I think if you go deeper into the literature, for example, Sri Aurobindo, you see that he makes differences between the psychic being, then he makes the differences between spiritual being, but it's the same consciousness which takes different poises. Like the poise changes, but the consciousness remains the same. It's not some other consciousness which right now you are not aware of. And that's why Kabirji says that it's so simple that you ignore it. So now, right now, if you just turn inward and look at, oh, yes, I am conscious, I can look at, understand the words that are coming to me. So there is something in me which is looking. This looking is the consciousness aspect, but I can't just say that that's it, because we have to connect with that, identify with this poise, and then we know the gradations of consciousness or different poises of consciousness. So, not good to make a categorization at this level. Yeah.
Usually we define Atma as something which is common to all, right? Like, although there is Atma and Atma. So I think if we just stick to that single definition, we could say, yes, it would mean that. But since that also is restricted, right? That too is limited, we cannot say that. But yeah, I mean, for understanding purpose, we could definitely say that. And when you were referring about enemies and about the topic of consciousness, once I don't know who, I found it very beautiful, was sharing this example that it's a war. Say, I don't know what the example was, but say it's a war between Ram and Ravan. And they are in Lanka and there's a battlefield and they're fighting and they're different weapons. One is good, one is evil, the different mysteries and strategies. And yet they are breathing the same air. Ravan cannot say that this is Lanka, this is my air, you can't breathe it, right? Like, so there are certain things which we cannot differentiate, cannot say mine, right? So that aspect of space, right? That we are so connected, even though I could be standing in a battlefield wanting to kill you, and yet that inherent connection is there. So that was a very beautiful example. I don't know of what, but yeah, very visual. So then you decentralize, extend, and widen yourself. Because somehow, with the way I have been perceiving things, I perceive myself, my life, everybody around me, the universe, the world, it's just one limit after the other, right? If I break one cage, okay, I'm not this, then there's just another cage, another sticky point that I'm waiting for. Okay, now I am this, now I'm this. So this wanting to define oneself, and when that's broken into this limitless expansion, then you decentralize, extend, and widen yourself. You begin to live in all things and in all beings. The barriers separating individuals from each other break down.
I think this a natural result of disidentifying from thoughts and feelings and identifying with this sense of widening, in us, and which is the same in all. Uh, the natural byproduct is empathy, that you can't be hurtful to others knowingly. Uh, because if you really truly, if we practically even have a glimpse of this in our contemplation even once, then it compels us again and again to be extremely sensitive, not in the manner that like sensitive, like fragile, but in the sense that you understand what the other goes through. It comes very naturally. So that's why in Buddhist tradition they talk about, parallelly they talk about inculcating compassion, kindness, generosity, because these are byproducts of our identification with this expanded consciousness, which we are. And that is why I think yesterday we were reading that it's almost a social responsibility that we must continue this inner work to find who we truly are, and to again and again stabilize that stance. And because from time and again we do get identified with thoughts and feelings, so one has to continue stepping back, stepping back, stepping back. And in that stepping back, I become naturally, byproduct, I can't help it, kind, empathetic, compassionate. And intelligence is also a byproduct of that disidentification, stepping back. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Even the word decentralize is very interesting, right? Because one is like you just have this based on which you are making all decisions, right? This is your point of thing, and you're judging, you are making sense of things just from that limited window, right? Decentralized for me, I don't know, when I read it, it's like that, okay, now I can see where the other is standing. I can see how that would make sense. I could see the universal nature or the small pettiness of something which is trying to overtake me. So I'm not just this rigid small person, I am more. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this the centralization is the cause of our miseries.
Mm.
When all my thoughts, feelings, everything is focused around me, me, this little sense of me. What would happen of me? Why is this God doing to me? And that, if we see, is, yeah, can bring a lot of relief, this decentralization.
And yet, when we talk about the center of operation, that is different, right? Like keeping a check on why am I doing what I am doing, that too is very important. And that probably is a, kind of, how maybe we can say that something is a helper and the same thing is the bar. That first we need that centralization to have a purpose, right? To have a reason that why am I doing what I'm doing. Till that is not needed, right? Till that extent is so much that I now have touched that space of universality, limitless expansion, unbroken continuity, that now that center, like, first we are scattered. Like when we started the session, we were like, we are so scattered, this first, let's gather ourselves. But if, and then, it's like we have this aim, we have this center, and then when one is more than that, the center would also need to be expanded.
Just one more, comment. Yeah, I'm reminded of what Jetsunma shares, that whenever we are interacting, talking to anyone, it's always we're always focused mostly on our own self. What is that person thinking about me? You what did I say to him last time? What did he say to me last time? And what can I get out of this person? So all the time, I think this word that you picked up is really very important, because if we look at it, then we can see that it is the cause of our suffering and misery, this centralization on this limited me. Although that itself may have a purpose, of course, as we say, ego has a purpose, but very soon it becomes a bar in our understanding. Yeah. Yeah, and same with ambition and greed, and all these things just go along with that centralization, because it's my ambition, I want to fulfill it. So rest of the people can go to hell, but I have to fulfill my ambition. And in front of that, all the torture is allowed. Yeah, same with greed and all other things. Yes.
Hey, so I just wanted to ask about decentralization. Decentralizing, like how if we talk about a center of consciousness, and obviously, like as mental beings, we have a center of consciousness. But if we talk about that as in the manifestation, we have a center of consciousness. But if you go out of the manifestation, or if you go beyond the mental level, then you can think about universalization, absolute universalization. But if you talk about being in the soul consciousness, or the mental as a mental being, which Aurobindo calls a human being as a mental being, or a mental purusha, then that will obviously have a center. So how can you be decentralized while you're in the body?
Yeah, I think the point here is not to remain decentralized. The point here is to know our decentralized aspect. Because when I'm totally focused on one particular thought and not able to step back from it, so if I am just taking a stance, for example, the word that you use, mental purusha, so I'm totally identified with the stance of poise of thinking. The point is that then I become too narrow and rigid in my thinking. So the point is not use the tool of the mental and the vital and the body, But to know that we are more, as Taru was pointing at, to know that we are more than thoughts and feelings and sensations. And that's why it's okay. I can step back and look at the situation from a different stance. So it gives me a flexibility. What Sri Aurobindo says, that the mind should be vast, open, wide, supple, flexible. How would that happen? It would happen only when I'm able to step back and see, oh, this point that the other one is making is also, it has a valid place. So let it, as in his works, Sri Aurobindo gives everything its proper place. And then he goes beyond. So I think the point is not to remain decentralized. That Sri Aurobindo too points out in his writings, that we don't have to just escape from the decentralization and go decentralize. But the thing is to have the ability to decentralize again and again, and to know that no, I'm not that, but more than that. That gives me a flexibility. That gives me a vastness and openness. So it relaxes the tension that from time to time, that keeps on kind of forming within us. So for example, I was today wondering on over something, and I was thinking that on one hand I can just take it like, okay, this happened, so what? And or I can say, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, this happened. So that oh my god is like my centralization, my fixation on that thing, as if that if this is not there, then what would happen? While on the other hand, if I say, okay, this happened, but it's not more than what truly is important, and then I can let it be. So that really gives me I'm just personally reflecting that it gives me a breathing space when I am able to step back. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that. This kind of like a rigid sort of outlook that we have is something that can be quite like a egocentric, and sort of like puts you like visualizes everything and perceives everything through your own ego filter. And sometimes you get that kind of like a breakthrough where you see that all of a sudden you see like a different perspective, as if like you're looking at the whole thing from as another being, and you're kind of like looking at it as if you're looking at it from a very universal and like a wider consciousness. So yeah, I understand that point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Albert and Monica. So I think at some level, just to put it very simply, also like, just detaching for even moments from that little me space, right? Like, could be decentralization for me. Like, it's like if I feel my story is this or my problem is this, but when I tell it to somebody else, they are in probably a minute able to see what's leading to what. If you just do this, this would work out. You're just stuck on this, and yet I am unable to see that, right? And that's what they say step back, right? Because once you step back into the witness thinking or a third person point of view, suddenly things become clearer. So that could also be decentralizing myself, right? That okay, I'm just looking at through it here.
No, but that you use the word that is
Yeah.
and that's what we were talking
Yeah.
of, that stepping back from this obsessive sense of self. Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay.
Just one thing I wanted to point out is that like from the agenda, like basically in, I think it was 1969 or 70 or something like that. So mother, when she was having these experiences she was going through, and one thing she pointed out was that experience which she had, where normally what happens is that we are looking at things from a point going outwards, or like whatever is coming in is also looking at that from that point. That point can be big. It could be like a wide space. It could be like a very wide consciousness. It could be, but it's always something which, even if it's like a wide embracing consciousness, it's still like that unified kind of point that you're looking at things. And normally it's just a singular point But what mother was talking about is that the new body consciousness that she was experiencing is basically there's no point which looks at other points or other things. It's like all the points are looking at everything. And that's the sort of decentralization that I was talking about. That kind of decentralization can be quite destabilizing as well. So if that's the sort of decentralization that we are talking about, that's also like a possibility, I guess, but that's something more to do with something, and that I think that could also be what mother was pointing out about the psychic being, the psychic consciousness, where she says that it's like where instead of looking at it like from a 3D perspective, it's more like a 4D perspective. So instead of looking at it like, okay, you're looking at one thing from here and you're peeking outward into something, or you're looking at another image here and you're like a point in reference, whether you're dreaming or whether you're having a mental experience. But it's always like you're like a point in something, you're like a subject and you're looking at some object, and instead of that, it's more like a more inclusive consciousness, and that can be something that can be interesting, I guess.
Yes, yes. I think anything, and what you shared, I mean, that was, yeah, like especially that point thing, that how you're seeing everything from everywhere. I guess those are spaces that one touches. But yet, right now, like we were just discussing, that maybe to see it right now from this point of view, like you also agreed that too is the thing, could be the decentralization. And that too, again, what you were sharing is the decentralization. And probably, like they say that everything has a purpose, right? So that too would have a place and a phase and a purpose. Yeah. Should we move? Yeah, yes, Albert, please.
Yes, no, I was just saying that, like mother points out, that the soul or the psychic consciousness is nothing like the mental or the physical or the vital consciousness. Whether you go into even the higher mental or the spiritualized mental, or even like illumined mental, higher mental, even those regions are not same as the psychic consciousness. Psychic consciousness is like complete, like sort of a what you call that, like it's something that can't be put into mental terms. So that's kind of what I was pointing out, is that, like, because she does say that in this, she says something about going to the depths of your being. But if you go to the innermost being, then it's like a complete reversal of your consciousness. That's that's like the psychic consciousness, which mother points out about. So yeah, I was just pointing that out.
Yeah. I feel that many a times whenever I hear us reflecting in these sessions, many times mother also has pointed at this, that many a times people are living in psychic consciousness and they have no clue of what is psychic being, what's, these words they have not aware of. So I think we also have to come back to that again and again, that it's a simplicity also, it's a simplicity, it's a authenticity, genuineness, and along with that a devotion, which may be found in, as mother point out, people who are totally unaware of these terminologies. They have not read Mother and Aurobindo, and yet they are living from psychic consciousness. So, and many a times it can happen that one may just continue to discuss it and not be able to live from the psychic consciousness. Yeah.
Yes,
So
but
that's
I
also very
just
fun.
wanted to point out one thing, that somebody asked the same thing from mother, and they said, Mother, I had this experience. Is it my soul? Is it my psychic consciousness? So mother said that, well, if it's this, the fact that you're asking this thing tells us that that's not the psychic consciousness, because when you touch that, there is no question anymore, because it's not like you're reaching the inner mind, the inner vital, that kind of like inner level. Yes, there is that inner level that where you can, which Aurobindo calls the mental purusha, but psychic being is the chaitanya purusha, which is, I mean, I know it's just a word, but I'm just saying that, like, the distinction that Mother gave was like, this is completely like it's another like dimension. So that's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a
I'm just
good
saying from
pointer.
what Mother pointed out.
Yeah, that's a very good pointer, that there is no doubt about it. Yeah, as Mother says that you just know, that there is no explanation you can give for that thing, why you are doing it or why you are, acting, but you just know that that is the right way. So absolutely, I think that is a very good pointer for us, that without a doubt, you just know. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, any other questions or comments on this before we move on? So you think in their thoughts, vibrate in their sensation. No, I'm sorry, I think I skipped something.
No, I think you have to start
Yeah.
from here. You think in their thoughts. You're right.
Okay. Yeah. You think in their
Okay.
thoughts, vibrate in their sensations, feel in their feelings, live in the life of all. What seemed inert suddenly become full of life. Stones quicken, plants feel and will and suffer. Animals speak in a language more or less inarticulate, but clear and expressive. Everything is animated by a marvelous consciousness without time or limit. And this is only one aspect of the psychic realization. There are others, many others. All help you to go beyond the barriers of your egoism, the walls of your external personality, the impotence of your reactions, and the incapacity of your will. Yeah, so right now, just to even, I would say, read about it is pretty, I don't know what words to use, but yeah, like, what is my possibility? Excuse me. Yeah. So the barriers separating individuals from each other break down. You think in their thoughts, vibrate in their sensations, feel in their feelings, live in the life of all. What seemed inert suddenly becomes full of life. Inert becomes full of life. Stones quicken. Plants feel and will and suffer. Like they are doing it right now, and yet I cannot perceive that. I cannot see it. And then when this happens, when you are here, when there is this decentralization, extension, widening, then you become conscious of these. Animals speak in a language more or less inarticulate, but clear and expressive. Everything is animated by a marvelous consciousness without time or limit. And this is only one aspect of psychic realization. There are many. All help you to go beyond the barriers of your egoism, the walls of your external personality, the impotence of your reactions, and the incapacity of your will. Yeah, the last line in itself is very important, but before that, any reflections on?
Yeah, so I think that the people who are able to openly love everyone without barriers would be aware of this decentralization. I mean, like if I look at myself, if I have to give something to somebody, I would have probably some questions in me. Does that person really need it? Don't I need it more? I think that person can get it from somewhere else. So things like these. So I'm not 100% understanding the reading, but I think probably decentralization would be just associating yourself with everything else and seeing that it's the same. Like what is in me is in the other person also, like soham or something like that. So like one, if one looks at uh, Jetsunma, so she to me looks like somebody who's decentralized, so full of love.
Yeah, and when we had visited her center, one of the nuns was saying that, people get like, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, I don't know, two tha ke nahi, but 3-year-old, 4-year-old girls for the nunnery, and that's too less of a age. Like they are not even toilet trained. And yet, because in a nunnery, they would have, good education, food on the table, clothing, everything. And the elder nuns would have said, like, at least maintain a little bit of age gap. But she cannot say no. So she would just, they were talking about just how full of love she is, that if somebody is there and asking her to accept someone, I mean, I know I'm just digressing, that she doesn't have the capacity or the will to ever say no.
Yeah, maybe like Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
And maybe if you know our aunt,
Mm.
so so that is what I'm understanding, like being boundless in kindness, in love. So that would be being decentralized.
I think for me, more than anything, it's right now, it's like that one thing is I can comprehend, and the other thing is I cannot comprehend, right? So, what probably you are saying is there are things which one is not able to understand. But at least what I can understand is that if I stop clinging, if I see I am limited and I want, there is something beyond the limit. So right now, probably it's telling us, not probably, it is telling us some of the things which are beyond those limits. So for me right now, just to understand that the thing that I think is defining me, is actually my prison, right? Is actually not defining me, it's confining me. Because we are so scared to be more than what I think I am, right? I'm so scared to lose my story. Because what will I be without my story? What will I be without my belief? What will I be that, okay, everything is all right? It's a scary thought. So I guess, so that's why these things are there, that there is so much more and it's beautiful. And I might not be able to, and I will not be able to comprehend it fully, because it's, like Arpit was saying, beyond mental domain, which I am ruled by right now. But if I can just understand that what I take as my self and what I feel is protecting me and defining me, I'm sorry, I'm just repeating myself. is the very reason why I am limited. So if I can just, for myself, just sharing, understand this from this passage, I think the purpose for me is served right here.
So just one thing that I wanted to point out was that there's obviously like two things. One is the spiritual aspect, the other is the psychic aspect. Psychic aspect is the representation of the spirits, the wider spiritual universal one being the Atman, the self, which is like basically the consciousness, and the psychic being is the individualization of that, and that is the, like, it's basically what mother says is the part of the manifestation, and it means that it's like the divine multiplying himself for the purposes of manifestation. And this psychic being is the inmost being. I mean, it's the inmost being, but it forms of the substance that it is created of is the subtle physical, the or what mother calls the true physical, the true vital, and the true mental. So this kind of psychic being formation, this is the purpose of evolution. Once the psychic being has been formed, if it's been partially formed, or it has been formed up to a point where it can have an independent life, then you can say that yes, now, like you said, that when I look at who I am, I mean, I don't know where I came from, and somehow I opened my eyes and I was born, and like I don't know where I'm going, because it's like a big unknown. And like the fact that you're scared of, I mean, not you, but like everybody's like doesn't know what's happening after this. So the question is, why don't we know what's going to happen after this? Is because the psychic being has not been formed, the psychic body has not been formed or individualized to that extent that you just, like, I mean, obviously, like, I'm not saying that it hasn't been formed. I mean, I don't know about others, but I'm just speaking from my experience, that if the psychic being has you've got a glimpse of the psychic being, or that, okay, this is your psychic body and this is what it looks like, and this is your inner space, your inner being, then you can understand what you are like, what your inner body, the inner light that you carry within yourself, the Agni, the flame, is like. But until it's been fully formed, you still kind of have to go through this process of earth and evolution and all that. So I think that's what the point of the whole evolution process is. Like, I mean, if there's no individualization, then if you just touch the spiritual layers, then you'll just be like, you'll just melt it into it, and there won't be any you left. And that would defeat the purpose of evolution and manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. Any I don't know, comments, anything on this? Yeah, thank you, Arpit. Thank you for the light. Yeah. And Jagan, in the interest of time, if you remember your questions, would you have the capacity right now to ask them from the last session? You said you were working, so I don't know if you can unmute and talk today. Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, just give me 1 second.
Yeah. So so I'll just read his question. So he says that I think that being conscious is easier said than done. Yeah, Jagan, can you say that?
Yes, ma'am. Do you want me to read the entire
No,
thing
you
or
can
just the
just ask
questions?
whatever. Yeah, no, just ask the question. Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second.
And if
Thanks
you
against
still
me.
have it, like if it's already dissolved for you, you don't even need to ask.
No,
But
no.
yeah.
Just want to be a little bit more specific. So, um, so the first one was, about being conscious. Um, so 1 second. I think my mic is having some issues. All right.
No,
So,
no, I could hear you fine. You can read. Your mic is fine right now.
so I said that if it's it's very easy to say to be conscious, whereas there are moments where too much happiness or too much sadness or stress or frustration kind of prevents us from becoming conscious. So the question is, how does one figure out to stay in the same level of consciousness no matter what kind of circumstance puts itself in front of them? I'm hoping my question is a little bit relevant.
Yeah, and it's basically it was coming from last time when we had discussed, like, we had touched upon consciousness. So I just, and of course, like welcoming more reflections. But what came to me, again, when you're saying this is that, first of all, that it is when that things are going up and down is when I really need to be more conscious, right? And I think when I get tossed and turned and, up and down all this a lot of time, then slowly it's a natural process also for me to realize that, okay, every time I go up, time I go down, and it's quite painful, right? Again, being always, it's like kind of you're being puppeted around. So when I'm being too happy, knowing, with a lot of certainty that the same thing that is making me happy today will be the cause and could be the cause, if I don't want to say will, of my pain, right? And similarly, the pain that I go through, I have seen that, that makes me so much stronger. So when I'm able to see this, and I would say relate to this and see how these patterns are working, because one thing is what we are told, run after comfort, run after money, do this will get you this, and that will make you that, and that designation, that salary, that position will, give you that contentment that you're seeking. And yet, none of us seem to have it, right? Like, not billionaires, not I don't know, like that contentment or that satisfaction, that sthirta, that stillness that we talk about. So if I am able to look at facts, it's for sure that it's not from some achievement out there. So when I'm just looking at those facts, it's easy to, connect the dots and see them and then sit with that thing that then what is it about? You lose it. Till it's not possible for you to lose it because it hurts too much, right? You feel that kitni baar बेवकूफ बनूंगा, like just to put it a bit more in that language. And then, yeah, that's basically just is coming to me right now, that how not to lose it. Yeah.
It's more like this, ma'am. So there are some happy moments when for I'll just take my own example. Like there are some happy moments and I'm so excited, I'm so happy. I end up promising that, you know what, I'll do this to you. I'll take you out for dinner if it's my friend. And I don't even look at my schedule if I'm available the next week or anything. But I just promise him that I'll take him out. And then, when that excitement kind of comes down a little bit, I realize, oh no, I have other work to do. I promised him this. So yes, so being stable, like you said, being stable is an answer for this. But now I'm telling you that okay, being stable is the answer. But when the moment comes, automatically, it um, just I get excited because like I say this now that whenever, like, every time I go to meet, on a weekend I go to meet my friends, right before I step outside of my car, I tell myself, Jagan, please behave this time. Don't be that idiot you always are. And the moment I open the door, I enter into the room, I am that guy, excited and forgetting how I'm handling myself. And that moment only stays as long as I'm there. And as soon as I come back home in the car, I'm thinking, oh my God, I did the same thing again. So yeah, that is why I put that question. The other question is about
So,
this.
Jagan, just hang on here for
Yes.
a second. Like now that you have further clarified it, one thing that one must note is that, I just, like again, it's a big thing, but what Sri Krishna told to Arjun, right? Like this is basically one of the stars of the Gita that, if you remember me in your last moments, it's then that, you will become me or something like that. So, but how do you do that, right? For that, you have to remember me every moment because you don't know which moment is your last, right? So if I'm losing it in special moments, that means that I'm not practicing stabilizing, stillness, mindfulness in the other moments, right? So if I start incorporating some mindfulness practices, breathing practices, connecting within, they're sounding like big words and yet they are not. Just, I don't know, sitting with the breath for 5 minutes a day, just watching it go in and out, which gives me a center, which gives me more weight, which doesn't just always go here and there, because in those 5 minutes, you're teaching yourself that no, not no outside. Here, right now, I'm focusing on myself. I'm looking at my breath, and that is my job for the next 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is nothing, right? It's nothing if I ask you. And yet it's so tough. So I think small practices like this, when I incorporate, then these things become bit more easier. Like I think one this statement, I think, was from Acharya Prashant. He had said that बेहोशी की तैयारी होश में करनी पड़ती है, right? So when you're conscious, when everything is neutral, if I am practicing staying within, it's then that position will help me when everything outside is full of chaos, right? Because when it's already full of chaos and you enter, then you're already everywhere, right? How will you stabilize? So if you're unconscious, how will you decide what to do? So when you're conscious, you make that effort, you choose your priorities, you incorporate small things. So that's, I believe, would help.
What you said, I think very, very good, very resonating. I could very well resonate with that. And along with that, I reminded myself of what Jatsunma shares, that, the first step is disenchantment. So when we have gone through many, many experiences of being swayed up and down, because every happening gives me a promise, it's like hanging in front of me. And what Jagan was sharing, that I become too excited, so that we are usually in our ordinary consciousness, this is the way we live, either in excitement or in a disappointment, either in excitement or in a disappointment. So why? Because we are living mostly identified with the ego consciousness, which is full of this sense of lack, that there is something missing in me, and there is something out there which, if I go towards, it will give me that sense of relaxation and contentment, which I'm not able to find within. So Jetsunma shares that the first step on the path is disenchantment, which means that now those happenings or people or work or anything that you have out there, now they don't hold the promise for you. Now you know that yes, I have been through many promises, and how am I right now? am I still fulfilled after running after those promises? Because the very country I'm living in, I wanted one day, one day long back, I wanted to be here, and it gave me a promise. But now I'm in the very country or job or with that person, but am I fulfilled? So it could be, of course, related to anything, not just the country. It could be the situation, the life situation, the person in my life, the relationship, the work that I am having, the money, the car. We very soon see, if we really looked at things closely, that the promise that they gave me in the beginning, that's not a true promise. That I still remain in lack after running and being a slave to those dictates. Then I think one can get disenchanted that yes, that's true. That's true that I now have the person I wanted in my life. I have the child that I wanted. But am I still fulfilled? Has that fulfilled me? And you see that that has not fulfilled you. So now when the next time a wave comes, which shows me a promise, oh, you will be fulfilled, like it really, takes me up, then I will not be enchanted by that wave. So the very fact that I get enchanted by the wave is a reflection of my inner state. What Taru was sharing, that if in the day-to-day ordinary okay life, if I'm not practicing, I'm continually living in this sense of lack, which I'm not aware of. How do I get aware of it? When I become very excited, and sudden excitement at something out there, as if that will give me the fulfillment. So I think this is very good indicator for us, that whenever I see an intense vibration going up or going down, this is a movement of wanting to run after desires, and it's only the ego that would run after the desires, because it's constantly feeling the sense of lack, and it's wanting that that sense of lack should be fulfilled. Otherwise there is no point that can give me this intensity. Mother talks about this. Once we had discussed desire, so there she was sharing that anytime you have this intense vibration, be aware of it. That's the vibration of desire. And whenever I'm fulfilling a desire, I am not fulfilling my own self. So that I think is a very good tool that one can use. Yeah. Yes, Ritu?
Yeah, so small example, like sometimes when we take a drink or two, so we feel more carried away by emotions. Like a lot of times people get into fights after getting drunk. And sometimes when we are feeling sad, we feel 10 times more sadder after having a drink or something. If we are feeling happy, we feel 10 times more happier. So that's getting carried away. And I think that's the time when we are losing our awareness of, I mean, losing ourselves. So I think probably when we are into that state of um, feeling extra something, then at that time we are losing our ground or the consciousness or the awareness, whatever we say. So it's a similar situation probably, because then we sometimes I've seen my husband, when he meets his friends and then they get drunk and then they will make so many plans. Oh, we'll go there. We're going to do this. Let's all make a plan to go there. And then next in the morning when they wake up, there is no plan. There is nothing. So I think most of the time we are in that drunken state.
Yeah, and it's very funny when you're a witness to that. Yes, Arpit, please.
No,
Yes.
sorry, carry on.
I was just commenting that light comment. You please, yeah, please speak.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, one thing to point out is that, how, like Ritu was saying, intensity of experience. This intensity of experience can be destabilizing. It can be, can put your being off balance, because it depends upon like how much vibration or how much intensity can you handle. And that itself doesn't mean that the intensity is something which is wrong, because like the mother says that your aspiration should be intense but silent. So that's something, like it should be peaceful, and yet there should be an intensity in your aspiration. The psychic fire, the aspiration, the flame has to be intense, but it doesn't have to be like something which has that kind of a vibration. So it's I guess it's like what it comes down to is like some kind of a vibration. If you can sense, like the mother says, that when there is a, like, how does the soul guide you from moment to moment is based upon, like it gives you a sort of a vibration. She mentioned that in your solar plexus, or some like in your solar plexus, it kind of gives you a vibration, which can be something like it's just a little bit of uneasiness. And when that comes, and when you're very, very silent, and you can sense that, that kind of tells you that this isn't right. Like, you just have to let it go, or you just have to call in the mother's presence, because obviously, like, your own will is not enough to do the yoga. You have to invoke mother's presence. You have to always surrender and bring in mother's consciousness, because by yourself you're just the the vibrations that are floating around in the world, the turbulence and all sorts of things. There's like the intensity and the quantity of these, or the quality even, like is so weird that you won't be able to like live with that. Like, by your own mental will, you won't be able to reject all of those things. You'll probably be like knocked around a lot before you come back down into a lower state of consciousness, or like less energetic state, and then you'll have to start again and all that. But what I'm saying is that it's like this is a weakness, actually, that we can't deal with the intensities themselves are not the issue. It's the issue is that, or consciousness, like mother says, like it has to be what is the nature of the psychic being. Nature of psychic being is devotion, love to the divine. There's always a feeling of love, of like self-giving, like a flower that opens to the light. So if that is missing in any condition at any moment, then you can be sure that opening up to the higher levels, or whatever, or like widening your being and all that, it can bring a lot of problems to you.
Yes, Harpreet, thank you. So, it really depends on, where we are, and in our day to day. I think right now, where our aspiration goes, if we can just take a check for that. So what I understood, what Arpit shared was that, anything, nothing in itself is bad. It depends on where is it going, right? Like, if you have to have that intensity, have it for the divine, right? But if I am right now not having that for the divine, so whenever I'm having an intensity, I can check, that, oh, I'm slipping again. So that's, I feel like, considering where we are in a day-to-day, usual, regular life, that must be a pointer, that knowing that that's not where I am right now, but that is what my aspiration is. But when my intensities are making me go up and down, so every time they are going up or down, I can stop and ask that, okay, where am I going this time, and can I stop? So, yeah.
And I think that's why renunciation has to be a stage in yoga. Like Aurobindo says that there is often a stage of renunciation and detachment, and just sort of like Jagan was saying, that there's some people that you go to and all of a sudden they make you out of balance and all that. Well, that's because it happens, and this is a problem. This is the problem of life, like equality. If you don't have the equality, and equality, absolute equality is obviously something which is infinitely difficult to achieve. But what I'm saying is that this is the problem. This is not just like a problem with this guy or that guy. It's like, this is the problem, like of equality. And that's why you often have to go through the stage of renunciation, where you keep your distance, and you talk to people that are of the same vibration and who are surrendered. And that's what satsang is all about, is talking to people who are on the same vibration as you. But peace is the basis of sadhana, according to Sri Aurobindo. Like, he gives us the basis of yoga, and peace and silence, quiet and calmness, equality, equanimity. These are like the basis. These are like the first step. If you don't have peace and silence, and if that silence has not been established throughout your being, like through your mental, vital, and even in your physical being, then if you touch anything to do with spirituality, it can actually be quite dangerous as well.
And yet, if I'm not touched by that, what do I do, right? I still, beyond these definitions and the terminologies, there is the truth that I'm living, and it might not be touched. And still, this maybe I cannot do too much, right? But there's something that I can do. So one must never be discouraged, I believe, that, oh, I don't have that yet. That is the basic. But even to develop the basic, one needs that will, one needs some, offerings and sincerity. So even if we are making in progress towards that basic from which the sadhana starts, I think that in itself is also a stage that a lot of us are in. And because sometimes I feel that can be quite discouraging if we hear too big of things and they sound unrelatable. It feels that nahi, then probably not my cup of tea. And yet it is, so just
But I think,
let us.
yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's like there's no, but this is once again, I mean, I'm not going to use words like that. Don't mean like, just for the sake of it. But what I'm saying is that like in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo says that none can reach heaven who hasn't crossed through hell. And so you're right, like you have to face the trouble. But what is the best way to face this stuff which is everywhere? Like, you go into yourself, and all of a sudden, I don't know, like, depending on your experiences, I mean, if you're a pure being from the very birth, then it might be different. But I'm just talking about myself, that there's a lot of negativity inside of everybody. And how can you deal with it? And to be honest, it's like what the mother has said, is that you need to have the psychic come forward, and you need to constantly be connected to the light, to the love for the divine, that kind of devotion, instead of like making a rule of yourself. It has to be there, like otherwise you're literally playing with fire, and obviously you're going to get burned, and eventually you'll find your way, but it's a long way. And one thing I realized recently was this silence above the mind, which Sri Aurobindo talks about. And that is something which Sri Aurobindo obviously puts it as the beginning step, that there is this silence, which is it's not something inert and dull. It's actually a living silence. It's a dynamic piece, which is a wideness that you open into. And that kind of an ascension, if you ascend to that height and that wideness above the mind, if through some kind of a process, like you're able to go, your consciousness rises above the body and above the the lotus, the 1,000-petal lotus center, if it sort of just opens up into the infinite wideness, then that can bring the peace down slowly into your body and into your life. I think if that practice is established very well, then you can move securely on this in life.
One thing I realize is, through this experience, like Arpit was saying, based on Sri Aurobindo, that one has to go through hell to find heaven. This excitement of meeting new people or meeting my friends also has to do something with how how I spent my teenage life. So I was more of a I was less social growing up. And as I became, as I came to Canada and I had to interact because, I don't have anyone else to interact on my behalf. So having made some friends here, I've, uh, I've, it is sort of a dependency, that sort of a dependency that, I did not need friends as a teenager, but now I do. And I also find that, once I come back to my consciousness after meeting them, I find that because I'm worried that maybe if I am not excited enough, that I might lose a circle, is also a factor why I get so out of control. And I have definitely worked on it, from being super crazy in a group to being less crazy. And it is the progress is being made. But the dependency, that I need someone to talk to, that I always need a bunch of friends to hang out with, is also a contributor to such behavior. And I definitely appreciate the responses here, that being more conscious. And also, ma'am, your advice on doing the breathing thing for 5 minutes a day, I think I will do that moving forward, and I'll see how the results come out.
I just want to add something here, what Jagan you have shared. If I think if we go closer to what we are getting really excited about, for example, in your case, you are sharing that meeting friends and talking to them and having this company makes me really excited. I think if we go closer to it, and if, for example, if somebody says that if you talk to these friends that you have cherished, if you be in their company, a lot of misery and suffering will come upon you. I think you would not be really sure now of hanging with them. So, what we are truly seeking in either in persons, relationships, company, work, country, it doesn't matter what. I think what we are really seeking is this a state of contentment and maybe happiness, one can say. Because if the same person, it's not the company that you are seeking, for sure. It's the promise that the company gives you, which is it'll make us happy. It'll make me happy. It'll make me content. So if the very same cheese, the same thing, one day brings you misery, which happens with most of us, the same person that we marry, one day brings us misery. It's very common, especially in marriages and relationships, that on one hand, I was just hell bent, I have to marry this person, marry this person, marry this person. And now that person is in my house and I'm full of misery. Not saying that the outer person is responsible for the misery, but what I'm saying is that it's not the situation or the thing that I am after. It is contentment and satisfaction and happiness that I am after. So, as Taru was sharing, that we have to go through these experiences, Mother also shares we have to go through innumerable experiences, so that in my own self, this conviction comes that has it really brought me anything? Yes, it brought me some momentary satisfactions, hanging out, pleasures, but now it's becoming a pain in the ass. Why? Because if that is not there, then I am suffering. If I'm not hanging out, then I'm suffering. So this stickiness that we live with, I think that's what we have to become aware of. That now it almost becomes like addiction to me. Like if I'm not with the company, I don't know what to do with myself. Because it's not that same pleasure that I get. And so I'm craving, for that company. And it's not true that every time that company will bring you satisfaction. It's not true. You will also see that it's not true. Many a times it becomes really the source of suffering. So I think one has to, we have our own way of evolving and growing, but one has to go through all these ups and downs, and so that ultimately to become convinced that it may come, it's okay. It may not be there, that's also okay. But I am okay with myself. I'm a best friend of my own self, and I'm okay. So just letting go of that sticky attitude which is there in everything. So company or not company is not a problem. The problem is my addiction to the company. When it's not there, then how miserable I become. and how much I crave for it. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
And a very small note, another one that, when I was not aware, I was being led and puppeted, it was fine. But now that when I can even see why I'm doing this, what is my reason, what is leading me to what do I think I will get here? And if I am putting like such a question here, meaning that, I do stupid things and I am admitting to that, so now I can stand back and see, right? Like I say, I am this body, I am Jagan, this is my mind, this is my thing. So just giving myself that power that earlier I didn't know. Now I know what it's doing to me. So I can have a bit more resolve, kind of a thing. So just that, when I couldn't see, I couldn't see. But now when I can see, I must, yeah. Jagan, there was one more thing I said you wanted to, or is it fine now? Before we
Ma'am,
end?
if you want, we can push it to the next session because I think it's 9:20 already.
Okay, so I think let's do that then. But I think a lot of it was already touched in this answer, if I remember what you had asked. But we'll further talk about it in the next session.
Yeah, because the next one is based on comparison and how, staying
Okay.
materialistic is, yeah, that's a different topic, but yeah, for the next session for sure.
No, but again, in that comparison and stuff, what we were discussing today, Jagan, just do make sure that this feeling that I will get it from outside, right? Like that thing is there. That would be again the base there. But yeah, we'll share more of this.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
just the last line here, that all help you to go beyond the barriers. Should we, I don't know, this needs a lot. All help you to go beyond the barriers of your egoism, the walls of your external personality, the impotence of your reactions, and the incapacity of your will.
I think better to take it next
Right,
time.
this is pretty big, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us, and let's just take 1 minute, 1 minute of just this gratitude that we were able to have this time for some reflection to possibly see out to different windows, especially those provided by Mother and Sri Aurobindo and others. And may I share any merit that I might have gathered from this meeting with everyone? And may all beings be truly well and truly happy. Thank you so much.